The FDA released a pretty significant warning letter to Q Health for their over-the-counter COVID-19 test using nucleic acid amplification. In the captions, you can find a link to Amanda's video where she talks about some alternatives, but I'm going to do a deep dive here over what the FDA letter includes and also what it means. Yesterday, the FDA increased a citing of false results for false positives, and that people, for the time being, should stop using these Q Health over-the-counter tests and should actually throw them out. This is based on findings during FDA routine inspections in October and November, finding shortcomings in the tests, where the major issue is that Q Health implemented changes to the device without updating the emergency use authorization. And now Q Health has 15 days to show data that supports these changes to show that they have no impact on the device, how they plan to address these violations, in addition to how they plan to prevent these violations or similar violations from occurring again. So now let's look to the FDA warning letter and what specifically was called out. The estimated start date for when the changes occurred on these products is October 23rd of 2023. The first violation was changing the substrate for the reaction. So for a quick overview, this is the Q Health test. You collect your sample, insert it into the device, and get your results through the phone app, where the test is completely self-contained. There's no mixing of fluids or complex testing procedure required, with built-in safety features and quality checks. Where under the emergency use authorization, these Q Health tests were given an approval for an extended shelf life from 4 months to 9 months. Where on those tests, Q Health reports a 9% invalid or false positive rate. So what is the substrate that they changed? The substrate is essentially the paper material within the test, which is typically some form of nitrocellulose testing strip with a non-reactive substrate placed on it. So oversimplified, it's the membrane that allows the test to flow, meaning two things. One, changing that material could make it so that the test runs slightly differently. And two, the shelf life may no longer be the 9 months that it was extended to. Because with the new material, they haven't necessarily proved that it can last that long, that the product might actually degrade within that time, causing a false result. The next no-no is that they modified and updated the device firmware to add functionality to their detection feature. This is a no-no because it changes potentially the sensitivity of the test. This could be for the better or for worse. Again, that's something they would have to submit to the FDA to show that the change is negligible on the product, which they did not do. And the third no-no is that they changed how the test actually detects a positive or negative result. Originally, the test was designed to measure an electrochemical signal from the reaction, and they changed this to a temperature-based signal difference, which again, that's just something they have to provide data for to show that there is no difference, that it, in fact, maybe there is a benefit to doing it the other way. But again, that's something they would have to submit to the FDA to show that there is no difference. It would have to be scrutinized, and then they would be given the go ahead with it. Mostly all of this is because they did not follow procedures. You can't just unilaterally change a test and call it equivalency within the device. You actually have to show that what you're changing has no impact. Where again, these modifications may negatively impact the stability of these devices, resulting in failure earlier than the 9 months claimed on the product labeling. So the corrective actions for this is they can update the product labeling to say that it's only for the 4 months. They need to submit formal requests for these changes. And it seems like with these changes, they changed their distributor. So they have to specify who that distributor is. That's just something you have to do with medical devices. And then again, the FDA is requesting that they take immediate action and cease the sale and distribution of their tests until they can address these concerns, showing the impact these modifications have on the design. So ultimately, it comes down to two things. The first one being the shelf life of the product. It may not last the full 9 months. It may only be 4 months. And there's a high concern for false positives, which would mean that the product is failing to meet their claimed performance level. So ultimately, for the time being, you should stop using Q Health tests. However, assuming that these changes, these modifications they made don't have dramatic impacts to the product, they should still be available within the next month or so. But for now, I would be using your COVID tests on different products.